Hi, I'm Phil Ball, pastor of Odyssey Christian Church in Jenks, Oklahoma. We're part of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, and we offer a non-judgmental approach to support your personal journey of faith. After the message, we invite you to keep listening for a presentation from our wonderful band. And if you want to experience worship live, we invite you to find out all the details at www.facebook.com/Odyssey CC. Conflict, that should be obvious for anybody who turns on the evening news, but that within the context of it all, we've got this playground. And I feel that children are probably the most excellent models of what it means to recognize and enjoy the playground. And certainly they don't have to earn an income, and they don't have to worry about education, and they don't have to worry about the world politics, and they don't have to worry about all these other things. But at the same time, the real development, in my opinion, of faith is that you're able to be lucid about all the problems and be aware of it and still make moments where you choose to just totally forget it all and play, or you choose to get into things. And this sermon is as much for me as it is for anybody else. In fact, it's probably more for me because I have a way of like taking a trip to Colorado and turning it into a youth project where we always work about caring for each other, and we always do this, we always do that. And while it was extremely fulfilling, Diane and I were talking about it, and we knew that we did more because the kids were there than we would have done if it had just been us. And that's just the way it is. And I get obsessive about stuff, so we get home and I spend all day Sunday working on the trailer, and getting it all cleaned up and all the different things done so I could feel good about it, and wear myself completely out so that I'm really ready for everything on Monday, not. And so it's like, this is as much for me as it is for anybody else. And so I have to remember, and as I put this message together, I remember a lot of different things. Like at camp last week, Nate picked up a number of branches from fallen pine trees. And the way they grow is they grow out, these big long branches, but when they break off, part of the pine tree a lot of times will come with them, so that there's this handle, like you were shooting a long pistol. And Scott and Nate started collecting them. And they thought, this is just great, I got to take these home. And so we had them stashed under the trailer. And there was like 15 of them. And I could not tell the difference from one to the other, but he could, and they were all special. But they see something fascinating in these things, and it catches their imagination. And I think that as we get older, sometimes we get so jaded with the way things are that it's hard for things to catch our imagination. I can remember a time when it wasn't obvious to me that we lived in a divine playground. It was a divine project with all kinds of wants, wishes, and something I was dissatisfied with. And then one day it kind of came to me that the great, what I call divine loving Creator, had placed all of this here for us to grow with and to enjoy and on a planet as a gift. And the second creation story in Genesis talks about that. But one of the downsides of that, it's been influential in giving males some sense of superiority, which is a poor reading of the text, but still, some people read it that way. And the idea that all humanity is supreme and everything else is to be at our service is also an inappropriate reading of that text, but still people take it that way. It's like we started thinking that we humans were the center of the universe, which then makes it easy to understand why the established church at the time of Copernicus and Galileo started resisting the fact that we were not the center of the universe. I once heard Thomas More, a therapist, say that an individual he was counseling needed to have a Copernican revolution and figure out that he was not the center of the universe. And that's kind of for all of us, as times goes on that way. But my goal tonight, without arrogance or egocentric superiority, is to encourage us to feel blessed and to feel full of gratitude that God's love has provided a kind of magic playground in which we might live and learn and grow. And I think it kind of starts with 3 verses from Isaiah 55, and these are the first 2. For as the rain and the snow came down from heaven, and do not return there until they have watered the earth, making it bring forth and sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose and succeed in the thing for which I sent it. And for me, those words bring a sense of assurance and calm when we read them up against our own particular concerns, fears, anxieties, cares, and challenges. We humans get so involved in the specific concerns of our lives that it's difficult to move away to gain perspective. And perspective is one of my goals for tonight, that you in your life can get some perspective on where you are as I and mine can do the same. It's kind of a magic playground in which we live and learn and grow. But there's even more to this text. It says, "For you shall go out in joy and be led back in peace. The mountains and the hills before you shall burst into song, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands." And that's really great imagery. And this text was written at a time when the Jews were in captivity, and they needed to hear encouragement. They needed to hear that God was there and that they had a relationship with a loving Creator with a greater power. And so we're all in that process of living and learning and growing and playing in joy, and it's even larger than we are. So as God is the origin, it's the most appropriate to direct our praise and gratitude toward God in celebration and thanksgiving. If we do other than that, it may mean either a self-congratulation, I did this all by myself without help, like I heard from a couple of political conventions this last election series, or misguided idolatry, my business, my politics, my economic system, my nation is the source of my life. In either case, these miss the mark of genuine joy and authentic life lived in the love of God. So God is in my opinion, the origin of imaginative play because God creates us that way. And the thing I love about children, and I used to couldn't say this because children, I had problems with my own childhood, and so I had problems with children. But I've gotten past that, thank you, Jesus. And the thing about children is they're really close to God's Spirit. They don't think about it, they just are it. And they come, and they haven't been completely, I don't know what to call it, earthized. They have completely formized, of what it means to live on the planet. So they come, these spirit things that just come bubbling out of them. And I think, just really believe that God is the origin of just imaginative play. Stuart Brown, the researcher on play, says that imagination is perhaps the most powerful human ability. It allows us to create simulated realities that we can explore without giving up access to the real world. Children learn to create narrative, and it is an integral aspect of their play. They move freely back and forth between pretend and reality. And that's what used to disturb me, because I was really fixed on reality. And when kids would move toward pretend, I'd start getting uncomfortable. But that's, I'm happy to say, not an issue now. When we went on our trip, Scott and Stephanie and Alan and, the lights went out. Alan and Nate went out a day early. And so they're all riding together in the same vehicle. And then they did some activities, and they met us after we had been there a day. And one of the first things that came rolling out was, did you hear Nate? He did a running narrative, telling a story for an hour and a half. And he just kept building it and building it and building it. And I thought, man, I just cannot do that. I'd be a better preacher if I could. And then it reminded me, listening to Nate and Alan have dialogue around the house from time to time. Nate will say something, sometimes having to do with bodily functions, and Alan will pick up on it and take it off. Well, that is the duh, and then they get this duh going back and forth, and it's so cool that imagination just rolls like that. But being a child of the 1950s and having my brother 8 years older than I am, and my parents really worried about so many other things other than me, I learned to play well by myself. And Stuart Brown says, though, that throughout life, imagination remains a key to emotional resilience and creativity. And I think God has provided many things for our imagination in this natural, what I call magic playground, so that we might live and learn and grow and live in joy. And so, we give thanks to God for those possibilities, and we try to recognize them. And Stuart Brown says, play can become a doorway to a new self, one much more in tune with the world, because play is all about trying on new behaviors and thoughts and dressing up, looking dumb. And it frees us from established patterns. For children who are always in the process of changing and becoming, transformative play is a constant part of their world and often goes unnoticed. He says that when we engage in fantasy play at any age, we bend the reality of our ordinary lives and in the process germinate new ideas and new ways of being. And I honestly believe that this is one of God's primary activities. God, if we're not bending enough of our life, God comes in and bends it for us, and opens things up and squeezes us forward. I think that the created earth recognizes this nature of God as we watch it and look at it. Because, who would expect it to be, 65 degrees on July the 16th? That just doesn't happen. And yet that change has come. We don't know why or how, but it just happens. So one of our most consistent sins is to want everything to stay like we want it and to be all the time consistently. And it's just not that going to be. And so I want to read this little segment out of the Stuart's book regarding this whole process of using your imagination. For adults, daydreams may give rise to new ways of doing business. Fantasies may lead to new love. Visualization may lead to a remodeled house or a new invention. Creative play makes our minds and takes our minds to places we've never been, pioneering new paths that the real world can follow. Like when Einstein came up with his theory of relativity after imagining himself riding on a streetcar traveling at the speed of light. Or like when a lighthearted group of designers from IDEO Corporation wildly imagine all the ways they can create an indoor dog exercising machine. In each case, they are using their playfulness to innovate and create. So that kind of imagination and play is helpful for all of us. And I think that it's important also for us to understand how play happens in scientific endeavors also. The American author and professor on your left, when you're looking at it, of biochemistry, called Isaac Asimov, said that the most exciting phrase to hear in science is one that heralds new discoveries. And it's not eureka, but, that's funny. Things didn't quite turn out the way I wanted, so something's happening there. And as an example of that, in the 1850s, chemistry was still in quite a primitive state, and a man named William Henry Perkin was a late teen, and he heard how it might be possible to synthesize quinine, which was an expensive natural substance much in demand for the treatment of malaria. And young Perkin embarked on a series of experiments to try to achieve this end through using petroleum-based products. And during his vacation on Easter in 1856, when he's only 18, he performed some experiments in the crude laboratory in his apartment on the top floor of his home in East London. And he made this great accidental discovery that a substance called aniline, a tarry black substance, could be partly transformed into a crude mixture which, when extracted with alcohol, that means mixed with alcohol, produced a substance with an intense purple color. He had an interest in painting and photography, and immediately he became enthusiastic about the result, carried out further trials with some friends and his brother, and he found out that it could be a perfect dye for cloth. Cloth dyes at that time were not color fast, and purple was the rarest and most expensive dye of all. Perkins' experiments led to the first purple chemical dye, which ushered in a fad for purple clothing that made the 1890s be named the Mauve Decade. So it's just like, just this things happen. And it's using your imagination and stepping out. So the road to mastery is another path that is best guided by play. We become the best at doing the things we love to do when we play. The guitar player that loves to make music with a guitar plays and plays and plays and plays and plays because he loves the practice. In George Leonard's book titled Mastery, he plainly states that the pathway to becoming a master in anything is that you do not just practice, but you love the practice itself. You don't love the end product of the practice, you love the practice. And George Leonard learned that as he practiced the martial art of Aikido. And I won't get into that, but that's where he came from as he wrote that book. And I've got a story about another character that practices. People always say that you can reach the top by keeping your nose to the grindstone. But as sports performance specialist Chuck Hogan observes, this is not true. People reach the highest levels of discipline because they are driven by love, by fun, and by play. The great performers perform as they do, and do so with such grace because they love what they're doing. Hogan observed, it's not work, it's play. Tiger Woods hits thousands of golf ball shots because he loves it, and he loves it because he plays at it, not works at it. Woods told Ed Bradley of 60 Minutes, this is some time ago, that as a kid he would throw balls into the trees, have them drop randomly in the thick rough, and try to make par anyway because it was just more fun. People I know it, and Buddy does the same thing. People I know at Stanford University, where Woods was an undergraduate, told me that he would hit shots with a slice so extreme that the ball would go over the apartments on the left side of the Stanford driving range and then curve back onto the grass. And he did this just for fun because sometimes hitting regular golf shots is boring, quote, quote. Now that's what Mark does. On a shoot for Nike commercial, Woods passed the time while the cameras and lights were set up so that he passed the time by bouncing his ball on the end of his 9-iron 40 or 50 times and then whacking it away without ever letting it hit the ground. The director asked if Woods could do this on camera, and it became a hit commercial. I enjoy creating, he told Bradley. I enjoy creating shots. Now, I secretly suspect, and you can say, oh, Phil, you're just being an unpaid psychologist that doesn't have any brains, but I secretly suspect that what wounded Tiger over the years is that it became almost impossible for him to have fun on the golf course for so many reasons. First of all, he was carrying all the hopes and expectations of thousands of people, as well as his own self-expectations, on his back every time he stepped onto a golf course. They expected him to do these miracles. And he didn't, at the same time, have the constant counsel and support of his father, because his father had died. He didn't play like a super golfer every time he got on the tee or the green, and he felt disappointment along with his own. He had pressure from the PGA to play in so many tournaments and pressure from sponsors to perform to their expectations. He had a wife and kids to be responsible to in addition of his other commitments. And so I'm convinced he acted out by playing with women rather than golf balls. Yet because of God's grace, God has built into our lives, in this world, this magic playground that doesn't just go away if we make bad choices, in which we come back and we try again and we figure things out and we grow and we learn. And the future is open for Tiger, the future is open for us until the day we leave the planet. And so how we play in our lives, how we grow, how we create, how we expand, how we give the unique gifts which we are capable of giving is really a mysterious and evolving process. And regardless, though, God has provided the place, the climate, the resources, the opportunities from which we are all, in our own unique diversity, discovering and expressing ourselves in this joy. I popped this quote from the book A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson, who walked a lot of the Appalachian Trail, which is a really long deal. And this is a quote from him after reflecting on that experience. But I got a great deal else from the experience. I learned to pitch a tent and sleep beneath the stars, and for a brief, proud period, I was slender and fit. I gained a profound respect for the wilderness and nature and the benign, dark power of woods. I understand now, in a way I never did before, the colossal scale of the world. I found patience and fortitude that I did not know I had. I discovered an America that millions of people scarcely know exists. I made a friend. I came home. Now, all of this adventuresome play, this exploration and growth, is the process whereby we learn about ourselves, we learn about God, we learn about our relationships. If we take off on a long walk just to see, just to experience, just to discover, just to play, just to observe, then we begin to realize the reason behind the reason we play that is doing and is so important. When we discover, we perceive like never before. We aha with awareness. We come upon something and go, that's funny. We come to know more of who we are, what we like, what we need, what we want, and above all, who God is, and that we are each loved beyond logic or comprehension by this divine Creator. So I send you, each one of you, to continue your adventures in play and in life and in discovery and in your relationship with the divine, loving Creator. Let us pray. Dear God, we indeed come to you as those who live so much with what's right in front of us, with the concerns we have. And there are real concerns. We don't diminish them, but at the same time, we sometimes don't mark out the right time to play. We don't allow your Spirit to have gestation with us. We don't allow that thing to go on. And we know that tomorrow's a new possibility, and we pray that you will show us and open our eyes and ears and senses to all those ways that we might enjoy and experience you more. And we give you thanks. Amen.